Good evening, everybody. So it's been quite a day coming from Fancy Farm, and now here I am at Beaver Dam, charging the car and just enjoying what a great Kentucky day. But let's talk about something else. We know that we've got a senator sitting in a hospital that is not doing anything to be accountable to us. So what is it that we have to do to get our senator to be accountable, to get him to say what's going on? Because he wasn't at Fancy Farm. We all know that. All right, y'all. Sorry about that little kerfluffle there. Here, I'm back. Hopefully, hopefully everyone can see me now. Sorry about that. We'll get fixed here shortly, I believe. I am on Western Kentucky Parkway and trying to do this report while actually heading back home. All right. So again, as I was saying, I'll start over. Kentucky's own junior senator, Rand Paul, took Governor Beshear's letter and called it a campaign by Beshear to look relevant. Governor Beshear's answer came back just as fast. It's a campaign ploy to say someone should have a 3-minute interview? Really? My goodness. Is that too much for Rand Paul? 3 minutes? That's the ask now, whittled all the way down. Is it too much? Just 3 minutes for us tonight. What's actually new in this story since we last covered it, and one important fact about what Governor Beshear can and cannot actually do about any of it. Y'all, let's go. Let's do this. So, in the comments, if you would, tell me what you think. Would your boss let you go without telling him where you were and what's going on and leaving your job just sitting around for day after day after day? Could you get by with that? I know I couldn't get by with it in my job. What about yours? What do you think? All right. So I say, well, number one, welcome to the Hillbilly Think Tank with me, Spencer Keck. I am the educated hillbilly. And no, that is not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies here in Kentucky ever since my kith and kin came through that Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone and the Long Hunters on their quest to find life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right here in Kentucky. And this is where, with their grit and determination, they established that and tried to pass that on to their kids. So I'm Spencer Keck, retired Navy doc, combat veteran, currently a public school teacher, and I'm a candidate for magistrate on the Hardin County Fiscal Court, District 3. Now, y'all, let's quickly recap what is new. You know the baseline from our last episode on this. 43 days, now 44, 0 votes. Governor Beshear's letter asking Senator McConnell verbally to confirm his capacity to serve or resign. That part hasn't changed. What has changed is everything that has happened since. Now, y'all, as I came on about an hour or so ago and said, I just left Fancy Farm out in far western Kentucky, over by Paducah, if you haven't been. Wonderful Fancy Farm picnic where they raise money every year for the very small St. Jerome's Church out there, but also give politicians time to rabble rouse, have a good time, make a name for themselves, get the base, ginned up. Well, a lot of vim and vigor. I was about to say vim and vinegar because that's what I thought they were saying as a kid. A lot of enthusiasm out there. Last year, the only Democrat that showed up as a candidate was Drew Williams, and he blew me away. I almost moved out to Western Kentucky just so I could vote for him. That's how much he really knows what's going on, has a real plan for Kentucky. None of the other Democrats showed up last year. This year, it was just the opposite. So I am hyped up. But which Democrat was not there which Republican was not there that was there last year? Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell was absent. So this brings us back. Another place when he's not doing what he should be doing for his constituents, getting out there and talking to them. Now, first, when Rand Paul weighed in earlier, and I mean that literally, Kentucky's own junior senator publicly siding against his own governor's request. I think it's a campaign ploy by Beshear to look relevant, Paul told reporters. There's a lot of news over how Senator McConnell is doing, and so to appear relevant, he's putting out inflammatory statements. We've had elderly senators from both parties. You haven't heard me ranting and raving, saying they need to prove they're alive. Now, y'all, that's a real fair point buried in there, and I'll give it its due in a minute. But Beshear didn't let it sit. On his own podcast this week, he shot back plainly. It's a campaign ploy to say someone should have a 3-minute interview? Really? My goodness, is that too much for Rand Paul? He went further and got personal about legacy in a way I hadn't heard from him before. Mitch McConnell cares about his legacy and he's ruining it. I don't think it's a positive legacy, but I know he thinks his legacy is being the longest serving majority leader in the Senate's history. Well, guess what? On his Wikipedia page, 5 years from now, that's going to be a paragraph. Now, next segment. And now here's something genuinely new this week. And I want to be careful with it because it's one man's strong opinion, not a fact I can hand you as settled. Steve Schmidt, the political strategist who co-founded the Lincoln Project, told the Daily Beast's own podcast that it's time, his words, for Mitch McConnell's team to get lawyers. He called the whole situation the incandescence of the corruption and said flatly, I think this is a fraud that's being perpetrated upon the taxpayer. That's Schmidt's characterization, and a strong one. I'm handing to you as his opinion, attributed to him by name, not as something this show is asserting as fact. What's undisputed, though, McConnell's chief of staff, Terry Carmack, who's run that office since being promoted in 2021, is set to earn $226,000 this year, while the man who employs him hasn't heard from him in his own voice in nearly 7 weeks. Now, next segment. And here's the piece of this story that y'all, I think it matters the most, and it's the part that keeps this whole fight honest. According to the Kentucky Lantern, legal experts have been clear on one point. Governor Beshear has no actual legal authority to declare Senator McConnell's seat vacant. None. The only 2 things that can open that seat are McConnell's own resignation or his death. Everything Beshear is doing, the letters, the podcast, the public pressure, is exactly that, public pressure. It's not a legal lever. I think it's worth you knowing that plainly because it changes how you should read this whole fight. Beshear isn't threatening a power he has. He's using the only power he actually does have, his voice and yours and mine, to ask a simple question in public until somebody answers it. Next segment. And we're going to draw a parallel here that I think is important. And this actually isn't the first time this country has watched a state wonder where its top elected official went. Some of you might remember South Carolina, 2009, Governor Mark Sanford, and the phrase that's still a punchline 16 years later, hiking the Appalachian Trail. Here's the story straight. Sanford vanished for 6 days in June of 2009. His own staff didn't know where he was. His wife didn't know. His security detail didn't know. When reporters pressed, his spokesman finally said the governor was off hiking the Appalachian Trail. It wasn't true. Sanford was in Buenos Aires, Argentina, with a woman he was having an extramarital affair with. When he finally resurfaced, he gave a live, televised, tearful confession right there on camera, admitting everything. Now, I want to be precise about what makes that story different from tonight's, because the difference matters more than the surface similarities. Sanford's absence was built on an active lie about where he was and why. Full health, full capacity, just somewhere he didn't want anyone to know about. Senator McConnell's situation isn't that. His hospitalization and rehabilitation have been disclosed from the start. What's genuinely uncertain is the severity of his condition and his capacity to serve, not a concealed alternate location. But here's the structural difference that I think really matters to us the most. And it's the one that is going to actually explain why Sanford's story resolved in 6 days and McConnell's has now run past 43. South Carolina's constitution gives its lieutenant governor real defined authority to step in when a governor is unable to discharge his duties. Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer said publicly at the time that he hadn't even been told Sanford was missing until the 4th day. And he said plainly that a governor needs to be reachable at all times in case of having to make very difficult decisions. That mechanism sitting right there in South Carolina's constitution created real pressure. Lawmakers openly worried about letting Bauer take over the reins of state, which is exactly the kind of pressure that helps bring a missing governor home fast. The United States Senate has no such thing. No lieutenant senator, no incapacity clause, nothing resembling a 25th Amendment for a member of Congress. A Senate seat opens up for exactly one of 3 reasons: death, resignation, or expulsion. That's it. South Carolina had a lawful pressure valve built right into its founding document. Kentucky and the Senate as an institution has none, which is precisely why Governor Beshear has no legal lever to pull. Only his own voice, and why this has now stretched into its 7th week with no comparable resolution in sight. One more honest footnote here, y'all, because I promised you the fair version of every story. Sanford wasn't removed from office either. The House committee censured him, found his conduct did not meet South Carolina's threshold for impeachment, and voters ultimately decided his fate themselves. He finished his term, and 4 years later, they sent him back to Congress. Can you believe it? Even with the real constitutional mechanism sitting on the shelf, South Carolina's system still left the final judgment to the ballot box. That's worth remembering also. Now, let's go back to that picnic. One more small detail, and it tells you something about where Kentucky politics stands as we speak right now. This Saturday, today, the Fancy Farm picnic occurred, the marquee event on Kentucky's political calendar, the one where candidates from both parties show up, at least this year, and take their lumps in public. Senator McConnell announced alongside his second photo that he won't be there this year. And Governor Beshear isn't attending either. 2 of the biggest names in Kentucky politics, both sitting this one out for very different reasons. One, because he can't, and the other, because he chose not to. Beshear's on a book tour right now. All right, next part. We're going to go for the line, but the fair is fair. Now, the honest hearing, because Rand Paul's underlying point deserves some real weight, not just a mention. He's right that this country has had elderly senators from both parties serve through real health struggles. And there's something, really uncomfortable about a public campaign that could look to a fair-minded person like piling on a man in a hospital bed. Privacy in a medical crisis is real value, and Schmidt's harshest language, fraud, corruption, is speculation dressed up as certainty. From a pundit with his own history of sharp elbows. Now, here's my answer. Asking an elderly senator to rest and recover is not what is happening here. Asking for 3 minutes of his own voice after 43 days and counting, actually 44 now, is not ranting and raving. And Beshear's own comeback lands clean. If 3 minutes is really too much to ask, say so plainly and let Kentucky judge that answer for itself. Privacy is a real value. So is knowing whether the person casting or not casting votes on your behalf can still do the job they're supposed to do, that you elected them to do. Now, y'all, next segment, we're going to bring it home because the standard's the same one I keep coming back to on this show. Show up in your own voice, especially when it's uncomfortable. Y'all, you know, I pledge that I will give you more than 3 minutes. If it's, coming down to me in a fiscal court meeting and my constituents ever have to ask, they're not going to have to ask twice. I don't need a law to force me to answer for myself. That's just the job. 3 minutes is not a lot to ask of anybody. When I was in the Navy, if I were to have abandoned my patients, my Marines, my ship, my base for 44 days, that would be called AWOL, absent without leave. And I could be jailed for that. Now, if I got injured, if I got sick, all I had to do was either myself let my chain of command know, or have one of my family members, if I was truly incapacitated, let my chain of command know. Otherwise, that was a dereliction of duty on my part, and I was abandoning my patients. And what do we have right now? A man that, unless he is going to speak to us, he is abandoning his constituents. Tell me otherwise. Now, here in Kentucky, we believe in hard work, grit, and determination. We also believe, if you're sick, you should have some sick days, but you should have a plan for it. If I was going to be out this long in the Navy, I had to have a plan for how to have my patients covered, because I was the only one seeing patients. It wasn't like I could just go to, someone else in the office, say, hey, will you take care of the 385 patients on this ship today? Oh, will we take care of my platoon of special ops capable Marines? No, that wasn't happening. There wasn't just someone else to grab. It would actually took some real work on my part to get my work done in my absence. I had to find someone who was as qualified as me. And that wasn't just anybody. So what do you think? Are we being misled? Are we being mistreated? I don't know. All right. Yeah, we got Tom here saying, if I didn't call or show up for more than one day, I'd lose my job. Glitch. McConnell, man, has been gone he has been gone for basically 2 months, missing several key votes. He's been awful for Kentucky and for the country. That's what Tom's saying. Tom, I would have to second your emotion there. All right, y'all. This has been the Hillbilly Think Tank. Y'all keep on thinking deeply. And please like, subscribe, share. Remember, vote for me in November. And you need to really look at the candidates this year. We got a lot of them, great candidates. We're out at Fancy Farm. If you didn't know it, Comer has announced that just here at Fancy Farm, it was announced that he is running for governor. So if he is elected for another term, which I hope he's not, I hope Drew Williams gets it. But if he is, there's going to have to be a special election. So what a waste of time and Kentucky money are we looking at? This guy's going to do what, 1 year if he gets another term? And then we'll have to pay all that money for a special election? Why on earth is he sitting in that spot on that ticket with the Republicans? Vote for Drew Williams if you're in Western Kentucky. All right, y'all. Remember, in Kentucky, united we stand, divided we fall. That is not just words on a flag. That is the glue that holds us together, because we recognize that, yes, we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper. And as we recognize that and we do that task, love our neighbor as ourselves, then we cannot be divided. And if we're not divided, we cannot fall. Y'all, bless your corazon as you remember everyone deployed overseas in danger tonight. Y'all, please have a great rest of the weekend. It was a beautiful day in Kentucky today.